question submitted as well, that really feeds into this chat, and again, super interesting, and I'm not sure I've ever heard anyone ask, so I want to make sure that we answer it, is what to do if AML is non-compliant. So I think there's a few ways we could answer this, because I think that's really broad as a question. And one thing I wrote down in my notes, the pre-submitted question was, ultimately it depends, like, what extent are we talking? AML non-compliant could mean a lot of different things. Like, I'm not sure where the question was kind of going um, in that respect, but I think, are we talking like major non-compliance, like not having a policy in place, not having a firm-wide risk assessment in place? Or are we talking about maybe you've done some file reviews and one of the files came back like non-compliant? I think they're very different ends of a non-compliance spectrum of things that can go, I was gonna say can go wrong, or that demonstrate non-compliance. Um, so I think for me, I wrote down, and Jonathan, you might disagree, you'll definitely have things to add. I've put, first step for me is identifying where it is on that scale. Um, Taking steps to rectify would be an immediate action I'd want to do. Secondly, thinking about improvements that we can make to the systems, to the controls. Maybe that's retraining staff, hiring more compliance personnel, implementing new technologies. I mean, the list of possibilities is pretty endless as to what we can think about and what we can do. The third one I've put is consider an independent audit. So if you're not sure on where you sit on that level of non-compliance, actually, whether you are deemed to need a Regulation 21 audit or kind of not, if you're looking to learn more about um how kind of good you are, where you are on that maturity scale of AML, then gaining that independent feedback and review can really help with where to go next if you are lost in that previous slide of all these building blocks. But the SRA does have a page on reporting breaches as well. So depending on where you are on that scale, I would recommend reading the reporting page to understand more. And there is an FAQ on the Law Society's page as well, which will highlight both pages in the follow up to the session, which talks about reporting a minor breach as well to the SRA, and that kind of handholds through, I would say, the process once you identify the actual non-compliant bit.
Yeah, that's super interesting. I think that that opens up a really interesting hypothetical kind of academic question about, whether a so let's say we do an internal audit to understand where our strengths and weaknesses are, and we identify an area that is not compliant with the money laundering regs. Let's say we haven't got two or three of those building blocks in place. Does that then trigger a reporting obligation? Well, we know that the conduct rules say we have to report to the SRA if we are aware of a serious breach of the rules or the regulatory arrangements, or if there's something that the SRA would be interested in investigating. Now, given that we know that they are fining firms for these sorts of breaches, do we get into that realm? We're having to report ourselves for AML breaches. I mean, it obviously depends on the seriousness, right? But I think there's an argument to be said that yeah, we probably do get into those sorts of conversations.